Good morning. This is actually take two. I opened my mouth and I started babbling. Oh, you're used to that? Okay. I think this is Foyan number 3. Emancipation. I think I'm having pollen or something. In ancient times, a Zen worthy asked an old adept, "What is essential for emancipation?" The old adept said, "A fog is arising from your feet, Reverend." At these words, the Zen worthy suddenly got the message. Do you know about emancipation? If you formulate the idea that you understand, then you are blocked off from it. Later, another adept said, "I dare not turn my back on you, Master, for a fog is arising from your feet." Then there is a story of when Bei Yun Tong left Dongshang. Dongshang said, "Where are you going?" Tong replied, "Into the mountains." Dongshan said, "Flying Monkey Ridge is steep, a fine sight." Tong hesitated. Dongshan said, "Reverend Tong?" Tong responded, "Yes." Dongshan said, "Why don't you go to the mountains?" At these words, Tong suddenly got the message. The Asians were quite direct in their ways of helping others. Whenever people come to them, they would show them. In this case, he said he was going up into the mountains. What does this mean? People today do not realize clearly, inevitably making an understanding. By a bit of understanding, they have blocked themselves off. How can one can only investigate comprehensively through experience. One cannot understand just by intellectual interpretation. Once you have comprehended thoroughly with unified comprehension, you will no longer doubt. Nevertheless, this is not easy to maintain. If you have entered into it correctly, you will not backslide. Thus, even if you have clarified what can be understood, that is not comparable to seeing what cannot be understood, and also having the ability to maintain it. Then you will always be aware and always alert. This is why an ancient said, "The normal mind is the path that one can aim for it." There's a question mark there. Oh, I'm sorry. It's too early. This is why an ancient said, "The normal mind is the path. Can one aim for it?" If you try to head for it, you are turning away from it. Seeing as how you are not allowed to head for it, then how do you maintain it? It's not easy. Is this not emancipation? If you seek a state of emancipation, this is what is called a cramp. Zhuan Sha said, "The whole earth is an eon of hell. If you do not clarify yourself, this is a serious cramp. It will not do to idle away the time." It's been long enough for me to do a restart. Stop opinions. The third patriarch of Zen said, "Don't seek reality. Just put a stop to opinions." He also said, "As soon as there is judgments of right and wrong, the mind is lost in a flurry." These sayings teach you people of today what to work on. When you read his saying, "Don't seek reality," you say there is no further need to seek. This means that you are still entertaining opinions that are in a flurry of judgments. After all, you have not reached a state of mind where there is no seeking, and are just making up an opinionated interpretation. People who study Zen nowadays are like this. Reading a transformative saying and reaching an insight into the words, they then try to apply it to all sayings, thinking that they are all the same. Keeping this in their hearts, they think of it as their own attainment, far from realizing that they have lost their minds by entertaining an opinionated understanding. They cling to it and will not let it go. What ignoramuses! Would you like to maintain a state of mind where you seek nothing? Just do not conceive all sorts of opinions and views. This non-seeking does not mean blanking out and ignoring everything. In everyday life, 24 hours a day, when there is unclarity in the immediate situation, it is generally because the opinionated mind is grasping and rejecting. How can you get to know the non-discriminatory mind then? Thus, when an ancient sage was asked if the created and the uncreated are different, he said they are not. Sky and earth, rivers and seas, wind and clouds, grasses and trees, birds and beasts, people and things, living and dying, changing right before our eyes, are all called created forms. The uncreated way is silent and unmoving. The indescribable, the unnameable, the unnameable, is called uncreated. How could there be no difference? Grandmaster Yang Xia, or Yang Jia, or Yang Jia, depending on what you speak, because I don't understand it. Oh, I should start over. Well, that's okay. People don't get this far. The true nature of ignorance is the very nature of enlightenment. The empty body of illusions and projections is the very body of realities. These two are each distinct. How do you understand the logic of identity? You have to experience the mind without seeking. Then they will integrate, and you will get trouble-free. You will get to be trouble-free. In the 10 stages of enlightenment, the 5th is the stage difficult to conquer, which means that it is extremely difficult to attain equality of real knowledge and conventional knowledge when you enter this stage. The two are equal, so it is called the stage that is difficult to conquer. Students of the path should take them in and make them equal 24 hours a day. And do you know they are drawn up by your non-discriminatory mind? Like an artist drawing all sorts of pictures, both pretty and ugly, the mind depicts forms, feelings, perceptions, abstract patterns, and consciousnesses. It depicts human societies and paradises. When it is drawing these pictures, it does not borrow the power of another. There is no discrimination between the artist and the artwork. It is because of not realizing this that you conceive various opinions, having views of yourself and views of other people, creating your own fair and foul. So it is said, an artist draws a picture of hell with countless sorts of hideous forms. On setting aside the brush to look it over, it's bone-chilling, really hair-raising. But if you know it's a drawing, what is there to fear? In olden times, when people had clearly realized this, it became evident in all situations. Once, when the great teacher Zhang Sha was cutting down a tree, a tiger bounded out of the woods. The teacher's companion said, "It's a tiger." The teacher scolded him, saying, "It's a tiger for you." Another time, when he saw a seeker performing prostrations, Zhang Sha said, "It is because of the self that one can bow to the other." These expedients are in profound accord with the intent of Buddha. The great teacher Foyan once pointed to a dog right in front of him and said, "An engraving." But when you look at this, do not look to the dog itself for clarification. You must see it in your own experience before you can get it. Only then will you understand that saying. As soon as there are judgments of right and wrong, you lose your mind in a flurry. I hope you get the point. The director. Even if you trust directly in the rightness of reality this very moment, already you are called a dullard. How much the more if you cannot trust directly? What good are you for then? If you directly trust the rightness of reality, why are you called a dullard? When you have been coming and going all this time? When have you been coming and going all this time? You should know you've lost one part. Then you see that what you had hitherto not comprehended turns out to be a view that has no relevance to you. As I observe the ancients since time immemorial, there were those who attained enlightenment from confusion. All of their statements are teachings on attaining enlightenment from confusion. Then, there were those who came to understand confusion after becoming enlightened. All of their teachings on understanding confusion are on understanding confusion after becoming enlightened. And then again, were those, then again, were those for whom there is neither confusion nor enlightenment, and all of their statements are teachings on freedom from both confusion and enlightenment. Next, those who attained enlightenment outside of confusion are also very numerous, so they are not worth talking about. So much less worthwhile are those who neither know enlightenment nor understand confusion. These latter are, properly speaking, merely ordinary mortals. In ancient times, only a few people, such as Nanquan and Gaozong, could be referred to as having vision free of both confusion and enlightenment. Students nowadays run off at the mouth talking about freedom from both confusion and enlightenment, but when have they ever actually arrived at it? Don't say things like that too easily. Since you still have doubts, now I'll ask you something. When you were first conceived in your mother's womb, what did you bring with you? You had nothing whatsoever when you came, just mental consciousness with no shape or form. Then, when you die and give up the burden of the physical body, again, you will have nothing at all but mental consciousness. At present, in your travels in community life, this is the director. Now let me ask you something. We receive portions of energies from our father and our mother through their sperm and egg, clinging to what we receive. We call it our body. From the time of birth, as it gradually grows and matures, this body always belongs to the self. But tell me, does it belong to you or not? If you say it belongs to you, when first conceived you had nothing with you. When did the sperm and the egg of your mother and father ever belong to you? Life can last 100 years at most. Furthermore, before the corpse is abandoned, when did it ever belong to you? And yet, if you say it does not belong to you, right now there is no possibility of taking anything away. When it is reviled, you anger. When it is pained, you suffer. How could it not belong to you? Try to determine whether you have anything there or not, and you will find you cannot determine, because your root of doubt is not cut through. If you say you have something there, while during the process of growth from birth up to the age of 20, there is no change in this certainty. But when you get to be 40 or 50, the body changes and deteriorates from moment to moment. So you cannot say it is definitely there. But if you say there's nothing there, nevertheless, you can perform all sorts of actions, so you cannot say there is nothing. Once upon a time, a man lost his way on a journey, so he lodged in a vacant cottage. That night, a ghost came, carrying a corpse. And then another ghost came and said, "That's my body." The first ghost said, "I got it over yonder." And the second ghost snatched it away by force. The first ghost said, "There's a traveler here who can stand witness." So the two ghosts approached the man and said, "Who brought this corpse?" The traveler reflected. Both of the ghosts are evil. At least one of them is sure to hurt me. I've heard that if one avoids telling a falsehood when facing death, one will be born in heaven. So he pointed to the first ghost and said, "This ghost brought it." Enraged, the second ghost tore out the traveler's arms and legs. Well, now the first ghost, repentant and grateful, said, "Your word of testimony for me has crippled you." So the first ghost used the corpse to patch the man up. The parts were again taken by the second ghost, and the first ghost repaired the man once again. Finally, both ghosts wound up on the ground, trying to eat the man's flesh as fast as they could, each one trying to get more than the other. When all of the man's flesh had been consumed, the ghosts left. Now, the traveler who saw his parents' bodies right in front of his eyes, already devoured by the ghosts. Then he gazed upon his own body and wondered what it was. Is this me? Is this not me? Is it something? Is it nothing? He went crazy thinking about these things and bolted off into the night. Eventually, he came to a cloister. There he saw a mendicant, to whom he related the foregoing events. The mendicant saw that he would be easy to teach and to liberate, because he already knew that his body was not his possession. So the mendicant gave the traveler a summary of the teaching, and he actually attained enlightenment after that. You people just talk about studying Zen by bringing up stories as if that were Buddhism. What I'm talking about now is the marrow of Zen. Why do you not wonder, find out, and understand it this way? Your body is not there, yet it's not nothing. Its presence is the presence of the body in the mind, so it has never been there. Its nothingness is the absence of the body in the mind, and it has never been nothing. Do you understand? If you go on to talk of mind, it too is neither something nor nothing, ultimately is not you. The idea of something originally there now being absent, and the idea of something originally there or not there now being present, are views of nihilism and eternalism. Saving energy. Generally speaking, practical application of Zen requires detachment from thoughts. This method of Zen saves the most energy. It just requires you to detach from emotional thoughts and understand that there is nothing concrete in the realms of desire, form, and formlessness. Only then can you apply Zen practically. If you try to practice it otherwise, it will seem bitterly painful by comparison. Once, there was a disciplinarian monk who had kept the precepts all his life. As he was walking one night, he stepped on something that squished, which he imagined to be a frog, a mother frog laden with eggs. Mortified at the thought of having killed a pregnant frog, when the monk went to sleep that night, he dreamed that hundreds of frogs came to him demanding his life. He was utterly terrified. Come morning, the monk went to look for the frog that he had squished, and found that it had only been an overripe eggplant. At that moment, the monk's perplexities abruptly ceased, realizing there was nothing concrete in the world. For the first time, he was really able to apply it practically in life. Now, I ask you, when he stepped on it by night, was it a frog or an eggplant? If it was a frog, yet when he looked down upon it, it was an eggplant. If it was an eggplant, yet there were frogs demanding his life the night before. Can you decide? I'll try to decide it for you. Feelings of frogs may be shed, but the idea of eggplant remains. If you would be free of the idea of eggplant, strike the evening chime at noon. Is this one very short? Yeah, this one's very short. This will be your last one. The most direct approach. Why don't you understand the essence that has always been there? There is not much to Buddhism. It only requires that you see the way clearly. It does not tell you to extinguish random thoughts and suppress body and mind, shutting your eyes and saying, "This is it." The matter is not like this. You must observe the present state. What is its logic? What is its guiding pattern? Why are you confused? This is the most direct approach. How about when I have not spoken to you, and you have not heard me? Is there any point in coming and going? At such a time, do not make up forced realizations. From the Buddhas above to the totality of beings below, all is thus. In this sense, sages and ordinary people are equal, wrong and right are equal, samsara and nirvana are equal. Now I ask you, whose business are the ancient Buddhas, and the generations of the past, present, and future? Whose business are the contaminated lands of the 10 directions? Say, if you understand all this 30 years from now, you will realize that I did tell you. Just don't say, "This is it." If you do, that is called the view of an outsider. Alright, boo. I'll probably see you after work. It's money making time.